Biological Code Podcast, a podcast on Germanische Heilkunde. Today we're talking about psoriasis, a condition of the skin. Martina had never experienced psoriasis before. That changed one day when she noticed that the inside of her right forearm had started to itch. She looked at it and saw a small red spot. Martina tried not to scratch, but that was impossible. Within 4 weeks, the spot had grown larger and larger, and along with it, more spots had appeared. Finally, a small spot also formed on the left arm. Naturally, she began to wonder what the cause might be. Martina was familiar with Germanische Heilkunde and therefore knew she was in the healing phase of a separation conflict affecting the outer skin. In Germanische Heilkunde, the outer skin is always linked to the conflict content of separation. This can mean the unwanted loss of physical contact with someone or the desire to be separated from someone. In other words, it is about wanting contact or not wanting contact. Importantly, such a conflict always involves a living being. In the case of so-called psoriasis, a special situation occurs. Both perceptions, wanting to be separated and not wanting to be separated, are experienced at the same time, overlapping in one or more skin areas. This occurs when both perceptions are felt toward the same living being. This means one conflict is always resolving while the other remains active. As a result, we see the typical scaling on reddened skin. The scaling reflects the conflict active phase, while the redness of the skin belongs to the healing phase. Together, this pattern is known as psoriasis. When Martina became aware that it was two separation conflicts that lay behind her psoriasis, the following became clear. 4 weeks earlier, she had brought home 2 parakeets. The seller had assured her they were tame and would not bite. Each day, Martina let the birds fly freely around. They always came to her and settled either on her shoulder or very happily on her forearm. One of the 2 parakeets was a little cheekier and more daring than the other, and so it happened that this little bird sitting on Martina's arm suddenly bit her. Martina had not expected that at all. It caught her completely off guard. After all, she had been told the birds would not bite. It wasn't that there was a lot of pain. In fact, it didn't hurt very much, for it was only a small bird. But the moment had startled her. She remembered thinking to herself, I do like you, but not if you behave like this. This is exactly the perception of the 2 separation conflicts overlaying each other. As soon as Martina became aware of this inner reaction, the itching stopped. From here, she began to observe her symptoms more closely, even taking photographs of them. Within 4 weeks, the spots became paler and paler and visibly receded until the skin was completely symptom-free again. The symptoms had begun on the right forearm, because that was where the bird usually sat, and that was where it had bitten her. Here we can clearly see that such a hanging healing can stop immediately as soon as the conflict has been consciously recognized. The bird had not bitten or pinched her since then. It had been a one-off incident. Martina realized the bird could not truly harm her, but in the moment of the bite, the 3 criteria of a biological conflict were met, and nature responded with beginning a significant biological special program. However, now the parakeet had become a track. Her body's warning system repeatedly triggered brief episodes of conflict activity. But because there were no further bites, she immediately returned to healing. In this way, psoriasis can be understood as a conflict package involving the same living being, wanting separation and not wanting separation at the same time. With an understanding of Germanische Heilkunde, you can immediately recognize such symptoms and act accordingly. In this case, awareness was sufficient. Not even-handedness had to be taken into account, because the conflict had been perceived locally. You too can learn Germanische Heilkunde and potentially avoid prolonged symptoms. Learn to think biologically. The knowledge of Germanische Heilkunde belongs in every household. If you'd like to learn how to apply the 5 biological laws in everyday life, visit thebiologyproject.org. You can also find more about our association at urkraftleben.at. If you enjoyed this episode, feel free to subscribe. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Telegram, and Instagram. Thank you for listening. Until next time.